Welcome, everyone. The Village of Sayward respectfully acknowledges that we are on the land we are gathered on is the unceded territory of the Comox First Nation, the traditional keepers of this land. Call the meeting to order. We have public input, which is a maximum of 2 minutes per speaker, total of 15 minutes if we have multiple speakers. Public input is for the purpose of permitting people in the gallery to provide feedback and shall be no longer than 15 minutes unless approved by a majority vote of council. Each speaker may provide respectful comments on any topic they deem appropriate, not necessarily on the topics of the agenda of the meeting. Each speaker will speak no longer than 2 minutes, but may have a second opportunity if time permits. Each speaker must not be allowed to speak regarding a bylaw in which respect the public hearing has been held. For the record, you would state your name and address, please.
Hayward Road, which is right. And I've got some paperwork here that I've developed for the last little while in regards to my application for zoning, or not for zoning, but to subdivide my property into 3 pieces. And the zoning that is applied to it and the zoning that's across the road from it. Zoning where I am is RU1, which is a minimum of 2.5 acres. And in the road that I'm on, there's 9 properties that are zoned RU1. And 8 out of those 9 properties have less than 2.5 acres. I don't know how that zoning ever occurred or how the last bit of construction that was out there, the last 4 lots, were approved. That those lots don't have 2.5 acres just to start with. So I think that the RU1 zoning is either illegal or that the lots that are within the RU1 zoning, which is my own and others, are illegal, one or the other. They, can't have that. I think that the laws have to be equal to all. Right, and I don't see that here. And across the road from where I live, it's all wetland there, and that is zoned R1, which I believe is the same zoning as the village has. And so I've got some material here that I've outlined about all that. It's kind of like a compounding errors, when you make a mistake and then you don't rectify it, then another mistake is made on top of it. And then another one on top of that, until you got a bunch of errors, right? So I think in my area, that's kind of what's occurred due to past development and maybe even future development. So I have some pictures here of like water, running water, and like the area that's zoned R1, that's salmon habitat. I've seen salmon in the streams there, right? And so I can't understand why salmon habitat would be zoned R1. And there's lots of water coming off that hill. It all comes down through there. So I've got all this stuff for you guys to read at your own time. Okay. And I'll come back in 2 weeks and we can talk about it again if you like.
Sounds good.
Sorry, I put your names on everything and there's some pictures and an explanation as to what the pictures are.
Okay. Is it okay if we hand this out after the meeting?
Oh, sure. Just
Perfect.
as long as you have a good look at it and think about it, because like as the town grows, dewatering over there, if something happened like where development happened, and you have to dewater that whole area. Well, what's going to happen to the salmon? What's going to happen to the actual water that's running off that hill? I know there's a 2-inch water pipe that's already running there to the residents that are past my place that haven't been serviced by the village. And of course, that would be a problem for them as well. So
okay.
Stuff to think about.
Well, Rita, thank you very much.
Oh, you're welcome.
Good. Do we have anybody else? Anybody online? Nope. Okay, so introduction of late items. Oh, I'm sorry. Can you state your name and just,
754 Sayward Road. I put in a proposal for the speed limit to be changed out front of our house from the village limit sign in, and all you did was change it from the village down. Now, we had amounts of animals killed on that road, our dogs, our cats. We've taken cats in that have been abandoned continually, and they're forever getting killed on the road because everybody's doing 70 clicks. It should be 50, just like here.
when did you send the proposal in?
I sent it in 2018.
Okay. That's why we haven't seen it. Yeah. It's also,
No.
pardon me,
I contacted them. They said it's up to you people to deal with it. Who dealt with the speed limit out here for 50 clicks from your entranceway into the village down to the dock?
we would have to find that information because we weren't on council at that time. So we would have to, so we'll have the staff check into that and get back to us on the next meeting. Because we weren't involved in council at that time. So we don't have that information off the top of our
There's
head.
a whole bunch of people, just about everybody in the neighborhood where we live wants the speed limit lowered.
Okay,
Do I need to get a petition?
no,
Okay.
I don't think so.
Because we've got people
Council?
roaring up and down there 89 miles an hour. And we can't do anything about it. I've had a dog killed, I've had 4 cats killed, I've picked up dead cats all along that roadway. It's heartbreaking, it's terrible, everybody's losing their animals because of it.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. We'll have the staff check into it for us and bring us back a report so we can understand what was brought forward back in 2018.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, there is nobody online. Councillor Tinsley, you had a question? Okay. Thank you. Okay, introduction of late items. CAO,
Done, Mr. Mayor.
thank you. Okay, recommended resolution. Is everybody good with the agenda? Other than we are going to be pulling 12G. 12G, which is the Village of Sayward Strategic Plan Report. We're going to pull that till the next meeting. So is everybody good with the agenda as amended? All in favor? There we go. Thank you. Minutes of previous, that the minutes of the regular council meeting that was held on April 18th, 2023 be adopted. Motion, please.
I'll move that.
I'll second that.
Thank you. Discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none? Carried. Petition and delegations. No one's here. So we will move on. Correspondence. Okay, so we have a recommendation that the correspondence. Now, the one thing I was a little confused on in the correspondence, there was 3. The Living Water. Living Water Smart. Watershed. I have that, and then the information from Sean Cooper. So is it A, B, and C? First is the or is that just for the delegation?
Correct. That was for the
Oh.
delegation. Yes.
Okay. Thank you. So a resolution to correspondence A and B be received. Motion, please.
I'll move that.
I'll second that.
Thank you. Discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried. Council reports, none. Reports of committees, none. Mayor's report, I'm just going to give you a quick verbal. We had a spill on the other side of Hardwick, as you were all aware of, because I think I forwarded you the emails. How that came about is I got a call from MP Rachel Blaney asking if we knew anything that was going on. And I said, no, we didn't have any information. We weren't contacted. So she put us on the list with because the Comox First Nations were first involved. So Chief Price put us on the mailing list with Rachel Blaney, so we could all be aware of what was happening. So I appreciated that move from MP Blaney to help us out there. Also, it was nice to make that contact with the Comox First Nations. Rachel Blaney did suggest, and we could bring this forward to the next council meeting, that we write a letter to the Coast Guard saying that if something happens in our area, doesn't have to be in the municipality, but in our area that could directly affect us, we should be notified. Councillor Bichette?
Yeah, actually, I was notified before any of the crew got up here on the Thursday night. They contacted me regarding where to put their boats in and who to coordinate with. So I actually sent an email to the CAO in response to that. So he should have been aware of that before the crews got here. And I also helped coordinate the day after when they arrived in the morning. So
I'm confused. Why would they contact you?
because I'd been in touch with West Coast Spill Response at the convention that we were just at. And also 2 weeks before that, they were wanting to put a 20-foot sea can somewhere in Sayward to hold their booms. So we were in contact with Sayward Futures regarding a possible spot in Kelsey Bay for that. And also being an expert in the marine industry too, I'm applying for a vessel of response to help them out in future endeavors.
Okay, so you're saying that information was sent to our office the day before.
That is correct.
Okay, CAO?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I can confirm I received an email from Councillor Bichette. It's outside of our jurisdiction. I really didn't know what the intent of the email was, so I more or less thought it was just information sharing with me. And I didn't see the context at the time, so.
Okay. Well, I think it's important for all of us to be aware when something happens in our area. I think it's important going forward. Sorry, did you put your hand up, Councillor Tinsley?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to address the point about writing to the Coast Guard. I think I agree that it's important that in how should we say, a dramatic or an emergency situation, we'd want to be aware of it. I think it has to be coordinated in terms of the parameters that would be acceptable for that, and who would be made aware of it. So, for instance, the chief is, I have no problem with that. The chief is implying that, and I would agree that an oil spill of whatever nature, and I'm sure it actually spilled. I know a truck went down there, but the parameter would be that's something that's affecting the ocean, oil related, we would be notified. Or it gets into other things too. If a cruise ship was to catch on fire out there, do we want the Coast Guard to? I just think we need parameters. That's all. If we're going to be writing to the Coast Guard and also coordinating with other emergency services that would want to be made aware of it. Just a thought. Thank you.
Thank you. CAO?
Yeah, for council's information, I feel confident in saying that when incidents like this happen, emergency events occur, and as you saw by some of the information that was shared with you, in this case, a regional operations center was struck up. So the ROC that you saw being referred to in the emails that were distributed with you. So it's very common for a regional operations center or for an emergency operations center to be struck up, for all of the sections of that to be established, and very quickly for stakeholders to be identified, stakeholders, community partners, really areas that are impacted, jurisdictions that are impacted, organizations that are impacted, and then for those organizations, stakeholders to be contacted, to be notified on an emergency level. I can appreciate, I mean, I think to Councillor Tinsley's point, well, to your point, I can appreciate wanting to be informed about certain events. And I think to Councillor Tinsley's point, the parameters are already established or already exist in that emergency operations center, regional operations center structure. we would be contacted if we were a jurisdiction or a stakeholder that was deemed to be impacted. I just feel really confident stating that. We wouldn't have been left off of a list by accident, by there's a distinct process in place there to contact folks, agencies as required. So I just wouldn't want us to, I wouldn't want us to sort of walk away feeling we were left off a list by accident. If somebody's indicating to you, we would like to be contacted, it would be, I would be interested to see what the response to that would be, especially at the federal level, because they just don't contact anybody for any reason.
Well, as I said, I was made aware of it by the MP, Rachel Blaney. And then I sent an email off to the municipality asking for any information that's been sent, and the answer to that was no.
Answer what?
To my question was no. The municipality did not receive any information about the spill.
Yeah, that's accurate.
Scott just said, or Councillor Bichette.
But again, I think it's context, and well, we can take it
Okay.
off, but I think it's context, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
We'll go over later. Thank you. Okay, so a motion to receive my verbal report, please.
I'll move that.
Thank you. Second,
I'll second that.
discussion. All in favor? Opposed? Okay, number 11, unfinished business. None. Number 12, potential land or municipal land for housing. CAO, do you have anything to add? Councillor Tinsley?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just had a question about, actually the gentleman from the public, I believe he was referring to that piece of land that we own down that way. Across from there's the estuary and the bridge, and then isn't there a piece there that we own as a municipality? And that's, so was that considered at all in this, like, I realize there's one recommendation here. Maybe we missed it.
Sorry, Councillor Tinsley, I didn't consider that to be developable land given its location. I think I didn't consider it to be developable land given its location, and given its zoning.
It's good. Okay, anybody else? Councillor Bichette?
Yeah, after looking at the report for what land is available, it's a hard no on developing that area, in my opinion. That's a great green space. Also, if you put anything up there, the view from the office for the staff would be absolutely horrible, considering what they look at now. And there's also a bunch of other things that are getting built in Sayward, and as well, there's also vacancy in the Sayward Towers. So there's still room here for people, low income or rental places, and we are growing. So I don't think that's something we should offer at this time.
Okay, so the recommended resolution is the council receive the potential municipal land for a housing staff report for information and discussion. Motion, please.
I'll move that.
Second,
I'll second that.
discussion. Councillor Paulson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. What's the zoning on that property? Because it looks like parkland to me, and is it reasonable for us to put parkland for development?
CEO.
Are you referring to the piece of land that's been outlined in the report? I believe the zoning is noted right on the report. And sorry, the zoning was on the top of the report and I didn't come through as in the copy. It is commercial. Zoned commercial. It's zoned commercial. And just so council's clear of your options here, there was a request from the ministry to, if you would like to submit anything, staff has just provided you with the land that we think fits what they were looking for. And if you don't think it fits, then there's really no direction. There's no further need to do anything.
Anything else, council? No, so that was a discussion. So all in favor? Proceed. Thank you. Opposed? Seeing none, carried. Councillor Corner. That the council receive the council coroner staff report for information and discussion. Do I have a motion, please?
I'll move that.
Second,
I'll second that.
discussion? Councillor Bichette?
Yeah, I think this is a great idea for us to engage the community at a better level than what we're doing now, and for us to possibly take turns and add a bit of our writing and our beliefs to how we run the community. So I'm all in favor of this, and I don't mind even taking a lead role in helping write things, but I think it should be a venture by everyone on council.
Anybody else? Sorry, Councillor.
So we were fighting over who's gonna, thank you. Yeah, it's an interesting idea. I think we'd have to have a sort of a rotating even distribution because it's going to involve a fair bit of work there. And we'd be looking to staff for guidance around, as it mentions in here, what can be said and what can't be said and facts and things like that. It'll also involve, don't get me wrong, I think it's a great idea, but we have to be aware of all the administrative and time costs. The other avenue to go is to put it as well, written by the CEO or not, just basically the facts of what's going on, which we did at one point. I think it was a couple of years ago. We were just laying out the facts, what's occurred, kind of things, which is pretty simple to write. It's like they're either facts or they're not facts. So anyway, I'm kind of concerned about the staff has a lot on their bill as it is. We also, as council, have a fair bit going on, shall we say. And I would suggest that it's an interesting idea to share it. But I would say at this time, I would prefer something that was just administratively out there, just quoting the facts. And then we could look at this in, say, another year once we get through this year.
Thank you. Councillor Paulson?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I also agree that it's a great idea to circulate information about the goings on in the municipality. As far as Councillor Tinsley's comments, I think I really miss the local input that hasn't been in the Sayward News for the last 2 months, I think. And it was always very informative. And I know previously the mayor put in a monthly report, and when that was not put in on time, I know he heard about it. So people want to know what's going on. And I think, yes, we have lots of things going on, but when we're representing certain committees or different projects, I think it's a good idea for the people to have an update from the person that's representing that too. And I would like to see this come up at a COW meeting in the future so that we can discuss all the parameters about it and see what we'd like to how we'd like to handle this and put it into motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Gilkin?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I also agree with everybody around the table. I think this is a great idea, and I I don't know if has it ever been done before at one point in the past, like Tom said, at some point, something like that?
Counselor Tinsley?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll just clarify, what I was speaking about was, I think it was about a year ago, the CAO at that time was doing a CAO corner, or whatever, and the basic information was just facts of what had occurred or were being planned. And to a degree, it's a little bit of a repeat of what people could find by going online, watching, or showing up at the meetings, but it gets it out there in another form, and it makes it manageable for whoever's doing it, to create it. And also ensure that we're just talking about facts. So that's what I was referring to. Thank you. Back to you.
Counselor Gilkin?
Thank you, Tom. I also agree with what Tom said about coming back to this at a later date, just because what staff has going on right now. So that's what I was gonna say. Thank you.
Counselor Burchett?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I agree with Councillor Paulson that we should probably have a committee of the whole meeting to maybe find the right way to move forward with this. But part of our job here is to communicate with our constituents and keep them informed and also give them a personal touch to it. Having presented facts are great. We can get those in the regular reports, but just having a more personal touch to it would, I think, be better for communicating with the public.
Thank you. Okay, so that was the discussion. So in terms of receiving for information and discussion, do we have a motion? We have the motion. All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none. Carried. Does somebody want to make a motion to when we bring this forward?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to make a motion that we carry it forward to CAO. Committee of the Whole meeting, probably no later than July, August, so that hopefully the workload of staff is eased up a little by then. And also ask the staff what they see as would be the date that it could be started, or have a town meeting to determine.
Can you make that into a shorter, you got
Oh,
CAO? On Sue's motion, do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, further discussion? CAO?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm not sure that we'll ever get less busy than we are now. So I just want to encourage council, if that's what we're waiting for, perhaps council wants to consider an alternative. Maybe looking at something quarterly as an example, maybe picking a target date, maybe bi-monthly, like maybe looking ahead to July's newsletter. So maybe using the next couple of months at picking away at this, and maybe grabbing somebody could take the lead, or on writing something, or you can speak with staff about some potential topics that we would, might be able to lend to, and put something together for the together, sort of organically, but as a team, put it together away from council meeting, just sharing information, emails and such, and I don't think this needs to be a long, comprehensive, kind of from council's corner, from council's chamber, from council's corner. The idea here is that I've been approached to do the CAO corner, and I don't feel comfortable being the voice of the village. I'd like council to take that on if you so wish. And I think I agree with Councillor Tinsley, there's some facts that can be forwarded, but I also think there's just some general personable narrative that can be lent to things like an update about the community garden, or you know, Canada Day's coming up, everybody mark the calendar, something, little statements like that, that I think are an extension of council that perhaps the public would like to receive. So I would suggest maybe looking at, potentially like a July issue. Let us use May and June to craft something ready for the July issue and see how that goes. But I'm not sure that a committee of the whole meeting, you know, we wouldn't be providing you very much other than, I think the process is an organic one. Get it started and iron out the wrinkles as we go.
When is the meeting in June?
The meeting, meaning council meeting?
So can we do an amendment to your motion and have it for the June council meeting? Give staff the end of June's council meeting?
I'm not quite sure that we want to give staff to the end of, or to the council meeting in June. I think it would be the councillors that would be writing the reports or putting in topics and writing those reports, rather than having the expectation that the staff is going to do it. If we have concerns at the beginning, then maybe the staff could proofread or just go through and make sure that the facts are the facts. But I think we should refer to having, as CAO stated, having a few months to get write-ups ready, sort of a practice run, and then submitting whoever's ready or willing to submit a report for the July newsletter, then submit that.
Okay. Councillor Bichette?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I don't believe this is a big ominous thing. And like I said earlier, I don't mind taking the lead on this. And as the CAO suggested, a write-up on the community garden would be a great place to start, considering that I've already planted 2 plots there and I could happily write on that, make it real easy. And just with the protocol, if, you know, it gets proofread, other councils read it, we all agree, it gets posted. It's not rocket science. So again, I'll take the lead and do the first writing if everyone wants that done. Thank you.
Councillor Tinsley?
I'm allowed to make a motion that I,
We're already in a motion.
oh, okay, sorry. So
You can make an amendment to the motion friendly after we vote.
right. Then to just add to this discussion, I believe that it should come from all council, that it should rotate. Scott sounds like he wants to go first, picks the topic, writes it, solicits it around by email, then it goes to the staff, they vet it, make sure it's factual. It comes from all council. They all come from all council, and we just each take turns doing take turns being the lead on the, and we shoot for the July issue as the first one. That's my conversation relative to this motion. Thank you.
Got it. So why don't we finish this motion? You can make an amendment to the motion that Councillor Bichette is the first one in July. Right? So all in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. Do you want to make a motion to Councillor Bichette being the first one in July?
I would like to make a motion that Councillor Bichette be the first one to pick a topic and do the first draft and relay it around to council, and staff checks it and it gets in the July newsletter. And it comes from the council as a whole. That's my recommended motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you. Discussion? Councillor Bichette?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Sorry to interrupt you in the middle of the motion there, Tom, but I could write something on the community garden pretty much right away and give it relevance to something that probably needs to happen sooner than later in the community garden than July. People need to get in there and plant, so I don't mind doing that sooner. Thank you.
Councillor Tinsley?
I'd like to revise that motion for the date to be reflected as June newsletter. May's already out. because we're in May, June. And I commend Councillor Burchett for his enormous speed. Thank you.
Further discussion? All in favor? Are you CAO?
Okay, so just, we've gone from being concerned about staff's time to going back to June. I just want to ask are we talking about a council corner focused on just the community garden? Is that what I'm hearing? As opposed to sort of multiple topics? Okay. Okay, just double checking. Thank you.
Councillor Paulson?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through to the CAO. I would also like to put something in related to the community garden, and that is the food rescue and food distribution, which they're tied together. So I think it can be not just one article, but whoever wishes to submit.
CAO?
If I might suggest, what we do in the office here is that one person starts the thread, writes something, forwards it out to the group, somebody else adds back to the group, and so on and so on. And that what you're going to have occur over the course of a couple of weeks is just a constant back and forth. You'll learn to hate the council corner.
Well, that's good news.
I'm just joking. But that's the process. I mean, everybody has some input, and then at the end of the day, it really turns into something organically through everybody's input, and things come up and you add to it. But everybody's involved. Councillor, what I hear is Councillor Burchett is offering to send the first email with the first few sentences of the thread.
Yeah, everybody on council can be on the same newsletter if you want to add to it. Councillor Tinsley?
I'd like to suggest that there be a 3 business day minimum response time. If you've missed that, you missed the boat.
Okay, I think we're still
To
in
add
the
to
motion though.
add to the thread. Just more conversation around the motion and the edit.
Is that the discussion? Okay, well,
I
that could
guess.
be some of the details that can
Sorry.
be thrown in there after.
Yeah, I guess so. Okay, thanks.
Okay, so all in favor? Opposed? Seeing none? Carried. Public nuisance bylaw, number XXX. Be received staff report for information and discussion. Motion, please.
I'll move that.
Second,
I'll second that.
discussion. Councillor Tinsley?
I had a couple of points in here that I've marked off. And I know one of the reasons we looked at this originally was the generator area. I am speaking about the right thing, right? And so there's a couple of things relative to that. And also there's some other areas that I've marked that nothing to do with the generator issue, but of the other noise regulations. And I'm going to suggest that either we talk about those now, I can go through them, or put it on the agenda again to review again at the next meeting. But on this reading, I have some points that I think need to be brought up again and looked at again.
Could possibly suggest deferring it to the next meeting, and then allowing time for Councillor Tinsley to bring those to his points to staff's attention. And then we could work through it toward leading to the next meeting,
Okay, you comfortable with that, Councillor Tinsley?
or do first reading and use the process.
Because we're losing the
Yes,
second and third.
Thank you. I think they're checking.
Okay, so we're not doing the first, second, and third reading on that. No. Okay. That's okay. So we have that staff report for information and discussion. Councillor Tinsley is going to get back to staff with some information. CFO. CO.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So the intent of the bylaw the draft bylaw being brought to council tonight was for you to review. And if you had any input or discussion points to do that tonight was my thought. Because there was no readings happening tonight. It was for you to then direct staff to bring the bylaw to the next meeting for first, second, and third reading.
Okay.
If there was agreement tonight on the issues that you wanted to discuss. If there's no agreement, then for sure we can bring it back to the next meeting, but
Okay.
my suggestion would be to
Councillor
discuss it
Tinsley?
tonight. Thank you.
Councillor Tinsley, mention the points that you have and the page that they're on, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm just going to the first one that I have here. Okay, it was 6.0. I'm just running
So
to it
what
quick.
page on the bottom?
6.0, bottom of the page, or top of the page at page 24. On that. Events held in, okay, issued, designate, no, my apologies, my error. Going to the next one. Page 28, at least it's got a 28, and sort of got a 10 at the bottom, but I think it's our page 28. Point 7.6, it references in every zone where the keeping of livestock is permitted. Do we have zones that like that? That's my question.
What's the definition of livestock? CO?
I believe the zones out on Sayward Road, sort of in the more rural area, do allow livestock. I don't know that off the top of my head, but I believe there's some mention of livestock. However, the definition of livestock in the zoning bylaw restricts certain animals, but I don't have that off the top of my head.
Okay, so we may want to bring that back for more information.
Yes, suggest that we just research it, because it did, yeah, it didn't jive with understanding, sorry.
Councillor Bichette?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, there are pigs and chickens out there. So, by the way.
Well, I know there are, I'm just.
Your microphone, sorry. Yeah, whether or not they're.
Yes, thank
legally
you,
there.
Councillor Bichette. I know they're there. It's just, yeah.
Yeah, it's whether they're legally there or not. Councillor Paulson?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a note beside 7.6 also, and I'm wondering where it says owner or occupier. So, and it says that throughout the bylaw. So how does this apply to renters?
CO?
Thank you through to Councillor Polson. So it's in the definitions at the beginning of the bylaw. There's a definition for occupier and owner. And an occupier is a person who occupies real property but does not include the occupier of a unit in an apartment, hotel, or institution. So that would cover a renter. Thank you.
Councillor Tinsley, do you have any other points?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. On page 30, 7.17, it references at the beginning there, every owner of residential premises or residential property subject to a tenancy agreement shall, and then it references, maintain the property, things like that. Basically, like I'm just trying to understand that subject to a tenancy agreement. So it seems to me, maybe this is, I assume lawyers have looked at this at some point, but it seems to me that there's a little bit of a loophole there if someone claims not to have a tenancy agreement, that they're then, not required to follow this. So that's my concern. I just bring it up. I'm not a lawyer, but.
CAO?
So through to Councillor Tinsley, so we shouldn't assume that the bylaw has been vetted by a lawyer. I mean, there's We don't have a stamp at any part of all of our bylaws that say vetted by a lawyer, so we shouldn't assume that. Uh, and I think Councillor Tinsley's noted the potential for a loophole here. What council wants us to do with that. I think council would find that if you went through all of our bylaws, many of them were established at a time where language has changed. Language was what it was at the time. You would find almost in every instance a loophole. I think if we've identified this here and we're in the process of amending the bylaw, we can, as staff, look into the matter and see if there's a change, a recommended change we can provide to council.
CO.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So my comment is it says every owner or residential property subject to a tenancy agreement. So that's saying that so if there's no tenancy agreement, but they have renters, the owner is responsible for these items. So it's the owner or the occupier, most likely the owner of so if a person owns a home in the village and they're renting it out, it's typically on the owner to maintain the physical condition and structural repair of the residential premises. It's not normally up to the renter to do that. So that would be my comment. Thank you.
Councillor Paulson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I know from using the Rentalsman Tenancy Act for many years that owners would have a tenancy agreement which would cover keeping the premises clean and tidy, and what the stipulations are for mowing the lawn or supplying whatever they need to supply for it. So, and if several cars are piling up on the lot, then it would be the tenant's responsibility to remove those or pay to have them removed. So, I think it's fairly clear. You just have to ask the owner that the owner would have the tenancy agreement in writing and signed by the renter. So it shouldn't be a problem with owners that have tenancy agreement acts or tenancy agreements.
Councillor
in place.
Tinsley.
Thank you. Just related to all the input. Thank you, everyone. And again, I'm not a lawyer, but in a court of law, you can have a verbal tenancy agreement. People shouldn't do that, but they do. I would suggest that this wording, because we don't know whether his lawyers looked at this or not, and we don't have the money to pay a bunch of lawyers to do that. Every owner of residential premise, I would suggest it be changed. Every owner of residential premises or owner of a residential property with tenants renting the property shall. That's much clearer. That word subject to a tenancy agreement is, again, I'm not a lawyer, it's a loophole. And I'd like to see that changed. I think it's a reasonable change. Protect us as the village.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Would occupier work? Because that's in the definitions. Every owner or occupier of residential premises shall maintain the physical, et cetera, blah, blah, blah.
Thank you, CFO, for that input. The onus is still on the owner. The intent of this is that the owner is ultimately responsible for everything that happens on that property. They can enforce their tenancy agreement with their tenant, but in the end, the owner is responsible for everything that happens relative to this. So it's every owner of or owner of premise. It could be premises that they reside in, or owner of a residential property with tenants renting the property shall, or owner. It says or owner, so it's owner, an owner. And then it's clear that the property involves tenants, whether there's a tenancy agreement or not. Sorry to beat this to death, but I've seen worse.
Mr. Paulson.
Yeah, I'd just like to add, could we just subject to a written tenancy agreement? Would clear all that up.
Why don't we get the CO to reword it and bring it back to the next council? Okay, with suggestions. Does that work? Okay. So all in favor of receipt? Did you want to speak? Oh, sorry, you had.
Start bringing up points, right?
Sorry.
Sorry, I'm not doing it in the order because I want to leave the generator one till last. So if anyone finds the generator one quicker than me, shout it out. So I believe this is on page 24 under part 6 noise regulation. So my concerns in this area relate to okay. Okay, functioning. Okay, so where it refers to, I'll look at I as the first. A person functioning within the limits imposed by a permit. So I guess, well, H also relates to it. There's no definitions here of when a permit would be issued to someone. Also for the same for the special event. So that's where my concern comes here. Like, I believe there should be some definition of why a person would need a permit to operate a generator. This is the way I'm reading it. Longer than 30 minutes after the power comes back on. That's like, I find that all very confusing. And that one person would have the authority to decide who gets a permit and who doesn't, with no parameters on this.
CO?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So the intent with that was, so in a previous report, we had brought forward that if it wasn't a community-wide power outage, so for example, somebody had a site-specific power outage, they would need to come in and apply for a permit to run their generator. So that would be an example of when a permit would be issued, because the bylaw currently states that generators can only be run during a community-wide power outage unless a permit is issued by the CAO. So that's one example of why a permit would need to be issued. Thank you.
For example, new construction.
Okay, so let's come back to the hours. So if there's a community-wide one, I'm going to come back to this because I think it's really important. We've agreed in here that we're in a power outage for the whole village. People are still allowed to run their generator from 10 p.m. to 8 a.m.
Correct.
And we're doing that because we believe nobody has battery backup for anything.
Yeah, we already decided that.
I understand that. I'm asking that it be brought forward again and addressed again, because my understanding is that reports have come in that show that all the equipment being referenced has battery backup. This isn't the only community that doesn't have, you know, like the other one is that I believe it would be the only community that's allowing this, right? Because every community recognizes that people have battery backups for all these things and power outages happen. And I'm concerned, I'll bring up 2 points. One, I'm concerned about health of people, right? And the other concern I have is about real estate values. My understanding is there are no other communities that allow people to run their generators in, all night long, regardless.
That information that is actually,
Is it?
yes, from speaking to other mayors.
Mhm.
I've been told, for example, Sabellas Tassis runs generators all night during a village.
Okay. So that's part of their bylaws.
And this is what they do. They can't survive without them. So everybody does it. Mayors that I've spoken.
I'm suggesting that we're trying to keep our real estate values up. We're a bedroom community to Campbell River. I suggest we look to our bedroom community and decide what is going on there, and also recognize the technology that's available and why people would need this. I think it's going to affect our real estate values. People come up here looking at the noise, sounds, and that's my suggestion that we readdress this seriously. Thank you.
Thank you. CAO.
Respectfully, Mr. Mayor, I just want to remind council that you've had this matter before you previously motioned and have a carried motion on it. So direction to staff today for today's meeting was to bring the bylaw to you for consideration.
Thank you. Councillor Tinsley.
I just want to make a point of question. So on the first reading of this, then we would be addressing these issues I'm bringing up? Because every reading allows council members to look at it again and bring up other points. That's
CAO.
municipal law. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So as the CIO said, there was a motion made at a previous meeting to reflect option 2 in this current version of the draft bylaw, which staff have now done. Respectfully, Councillor Tinsley definitely has a point here. If he would like to make a motion to change, readdress, bring it back, whatever he's looking for, he's more than welcome to do that. It would just go through the normal process. It would need a seconder and you can do a vote. Thank you.
So correct me if I'm wrong, but in the Local Government Act, if a motion was gone through and somebody wanted to bring it back, they could do that within 30 days as long as they weren't on the, as long as they were on the winning side of that vote. Is that not what the Local Government Act states?
I believe that's if a specific motion is being reconsidered. So if we're going to put the exact same motion on the table tonight, that's what that refers to. If Councillor
Okay.
Tinsley wants to make a completely separate motion, he's welcome to do that.
Okay, CAO.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to use the opportunity at this meeting, though, to perhaps discuss some of the topics that Councillor Tinsley is raising, because I think just to make a motion to defer the process to another meeting on the basis of certain information might not be appropriate. For instance, and respectfully, Councillor Tinsley is implying that a significant basis for this report stems from perhaps the lack of information about batteries or the use of batteries. And I'm having a hard time articulating or articulating the message, but I think what I want to say is the certain medical equipment that was referred to in the previous report comprised a fraction of the report. The entire report was not based on sustaining the use of a chairlift or other medical equipment that does in fact have backup battery power. I would acknowledge that. I know that equipment and I know it has backup battery power. On that point alone, that doesn't speak to people who don't have the ability for a secondary source of heat, that secondary to electricity. It doesn't speak to extended outages that may jeopardize refrigerated food, freezer food. So there's other factors that were considered to this in addition to medical equipment that relies on electrical power. And even then, the battery power only lasts for so long. If it's an extended outage, that battery life is going to drain and it's going to need to be recharged. Otherwise, that equipment would be rendered ineffective. So I appreciate the point. I just want to, provide some clarity to it. And if there's other points that are worth discussing tonight and staff can provide some feedback to support the request, we'd be happy to hear that and answer.
Okay, so Councillor Gilkin and then Councillor Tinsley.
Thank you. I can see where Councillor Tinsley's coming from. I can't even remember it was the April 4th meeting where we discussed this, I believe. And I went home and I Googled battery backups for CPAP machines and for other things. And they're hundreds and hundreds of dollars for battery backups. And a lot of our not a lot of people can afford hundreds and hundreds of dollars for these backup for these batteries. That's the way that I'm looking at it cost wise, and for our citizens who some may be lower income and whatnot, that's just the way I'm looking at it cost wise, because to me, it just seems outrageous to pay $600 for a battery backup for.
Thank you. Councillor Tinsley.
Thank you. I think we have to be careful about throwing around numbers. There's other numbers that say that those packs are available for $170. The other point I want to bring up, and if a person can afford a generator and a house, they generally can afford the additions to their equipment, whether they be here or in New York City. The other point I want to bring up, and the CAO brought some good points about this isn't all about that equipment, but I have to remind us that you are still able to run your generator for 16 hours a day. That's lots of time to refresh your freezers, to recharge your batteries. And the other point I want to bring up, and I'll make that motion if that's the next step to it, is we are a bedroom community to Campbell River. And we need to look at what they're doing, because if we're going to do something different here, it's going to reflect in our property values. So those are my 2 points. Thanks.
Councillor Bichette.
Yeah, I'd like to, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to speak to the cost of backup battery system. I've purchased a $3,500 high-end backup battery. And yes, it can run your fridge. Yes, it can cook a meal, but it still only has a limited lifespan of what it can do. And at $3,500, I can run an apartment for 2 days. That's about it. And I still need to get recharged. And that's being modest with food preparing or not running a kettle. And again, it's not producing heat. So, and we do have adverse conditions here, especially in the winter when it is cold. The power can be out for, multiple days, 6 days. And yeah, so it's not necessarily cost effective to have battery backup. And on top of that, I still have a propane and gas generator too.
Councillor Tinsley.
Thank you for those points. Now we're up to $3,500. I'd like to raise it to $5,000. Whatever it is, you can run your generator for 16 hours a day to recharge whatever you need to heat your home, to do your freezers. At the very least, as a compromise, whether this comes in a motion or not, I think we should look directly to the community we are a bedroom community to, and look to what they're doing in this area, because otherwise I believe it will affect our real estate values.
Thank you, Councillor Paulson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. With respect to Councillor Tinsley's comments, I would like to point out that at the last meeting, we voted on a motion to accept option number 2, and that was put through as a bylaw. And the same arguments were used during that discussion. And the bylaw, or sorry, the proposal to accept option number 2 was passed, and with 2 people opposing, myself being one of them. And so the information that I've gotten from before is that when a bylaw is passed, even though you opposed it, we agree that it is the choice of council to implement that bylaw. So I think this is a moot point, whether what we're going to change in here when it reflects the option number 2, which was passed by a majority.
Just to jump in here real quick. One of the things, it was passed at the last meeting or the meeting before. I'm sorry, I don't have the exact date. What was conveyed to Councillor Tinsley is he has the opportunity to make a different motion that we can address prior to. This motion has been passed and it is the will of council, and therefore we support it. We go forward with that. Go ahead, Councillor Tinsley.
I did read up on this on the municipal information, and it cites that at each reading, a council member can bring up, doesn't matter which council member, other points of consideration and potential change to a bylaw that was voted on before. That's specifically there.
Amendments.
Yes,
Amendments,
can
correct.
make amendments, yes.
Correct.
Yeah, so I just wanted to clarify that because I'm hearing something different and I believe it's incorrect. Thank you.
You know, they're welcome to bring up amendments to what was passed. Correct? But not to, you're not, correct me if I'm wrong in terms of Robert's rule, but you're not, we don't go back and rescind that bylaw or what we passed at the last meeting that was voted in favor of council, correct?
So I think perhaps accidentally, there's just different terms sneaking in here that might be causing some confusion. Councillor Polson's used the words, if a bylaw is approved, it cannot be changed by council. And I think that what we have here is there was a staff report that a motion was made to bring, it was a staff report where a motion was made, carried to have staff bring back a bylaw. The CO has reported to council, so it's not a bylaw that's passed, it was a staff report that was a resolution, pardon me. So Ms. Clark has advised you that you can make another motion if you want. But I just want to clarify, there hasn't been a bylaw
Understood.
passed.
Okay, so Councillor Tinsley, do you want to make another motion?
Yes, I would like to make a motion that we, at the very least, as a sort of reality check here, is that we have a review of our closest bedroom community, Campbell River, of we are a bedroom community too, and reflect on what is written in their bylaws relative to this issue.
Thank you. Do we have a second? Sorry, no second. The motion does not stand.
Great, thank you.
Okay, so let's move on. We're going to go to D. Financial statements, variance, sorry. Well, we'll do that, as you said, with bring back the first reading. Did you want to do it? According to the wording of this is to direct staff to return. So yeah, so of all the things that you mentioned in here, you have written down some of the changes that he's implying that he wants, correct? Okay. CO?
Two things. I think the question from the from Ms. Clark was Councillor Tinsley finished bringing to our attention any potential edits? And I did have a question going back to the fences section that Councillor Tinsley brought up earlier.
Okay, yeah, Councillor Tinsley mentioned that he was going to save the generator for last on the points that you wanted to bring forward. So that's what I was going off on. Go ahead.
Can I just ask Councillor Tinsley then, going back to page 28, with respect to fences. So I just want to understand the request so we can follow up appropriately. So under the category of fences, there's several references to livestock. So I think there was two things you asked for, or two things you referred to. One was, is there a definition for livestock? We'll definitely follow up on that, but I'm also wondering what the first request was.
Sorry.
But
The first was really related to whether we actually had livestock. There's a definition of what livestock is and whether it's actually referenced as approved in certain areas or not. That's the second point to it. They're related.
Okay, we're good. Okay, financial statement. The council receives the financial statement variance to March 31st. Staff report for information and discussion. Motion, please.
I'll move that.
Thank you. Second.
I'll second that.
Thank you. Discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, carried.
Mr. Mayor, just going back to the public nuisance staff report, there was a second recommendation that you did not get a motion and seconder on.
Okay, you're referring to the coming back
Yes.
direction, sorry, okay. That staff be directed to return the public nuisance bylaw number XXX to the May 16th, 2023 council meeting for first, second, and third reading. Do you have a motion, please?
I'll move that.
Second,
I'll second that.
thank you. Discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried. Okay, special meeting for the audit report. Staff report for information and discussion. Do you have a motion, please?
I'll move that.
Thank you. Second,
I'll second that.
discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, carried. And council schedules a special council meeting for May 9th, 2023, either at 5 or 6. So we'll just let me just read this off there. To receive the 2022 audited financial statements and audited finding reports from Chad Knows and Bolts. So we'll do this and we'll take the 5 and 6 into discussion. That's fine. Okay, motion, please.
I'll move that.
Second,
I'll second that.
discussion. What do you guys want? 5 or 6? Councillor Bichette?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. After reading it, 5 o'clock seems a lot better. It allows for the financial consultants to offer a free tax clinic to the residents of Saywards, which could be grateful for some people. So I recommend 5 o'clock.
Councillor Gilligan?
That sums up what I was gonna say.
Thank you. Councillor Tinsley, is it 5 o'clock work for you? Because you,
5 o'clock works for me. I'm just wondering, are we going to be advertising that so people of that category can take advantage of it?
yeah, I would assume, yes, it's going on Facebook and so on and so forth. Yes.
Yeah, I'm in favor of 5. Thank you.
Councillor Paulson, you're good with 5? Okay, so that's part of the discussion. So we'll put 5 PM. All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, carried. Council's action list, CAO. The council received the council action list staff report for information and discussion. Do you have a motion, please?
I'll move that.
Second,
I'll second that.
discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, carried. Next is the Recreation Service Report. From April 2023, report for information and discussion. Do I have a motion, please?
I'll move that.
Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Discussion. Councillor Paulson? Sorry? Oh, sorry.
Yes, I would just like to state that this is a very full report, and I appreciate the manager's time taken to do this report. And when you look at the increase in usage, it indicates to me a very strong, positive usage of the rec center and the services there. And I just really am still disappointed that we're closing it from the 1st of June to the 1st of October. And I wonder if there's any way of revisiting that. That's it.
Councillor Bichette?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I agree with Councillor Paulson that we should revisit this, especially with the after-school program for the kids. I've had parents come and talk to me in the community with great concerns with the after-school program, and that it's not going to be available for certain months while the kids are still in school. Thank you.
Anyone else? Counselor Tinsley?
I agree with this is an excellent report, and I think we can all notice that a lot on a number of the ones, a high percentage is Valley users. So it does support whatever's coming out on this study that's happening. Also, total pool patrons at 306. Basically, I didn't do the exact math, but pretty much adds up to all the other programs combined. So very interesting in that area. Also, we know that pools are the most expensive part of the operation, aside from salaries and things like that. So an excellent report. And I would also agree that if there is any way, this comes back down to hard dollars of us looking at the potential for readdressing, particularly the school program as mentioned. I suggest that's a possible consideration as well. Thank you.
I think the CAO would know whether or not, even if we decided to bring June back into the fold and close July, whether or not the staff have been issued the thing saying they'd be done in the beginning of June or what have you. CAO, do you want to comment on that?
Well, to the question of availability of staff, I cannot provide a conclusive response to that. So I'd have to look into that and report back to council.
Okay, so can you report back by the next council meeting on the availability of staff for June? Sorry, and the cost, please. Thank you. So, Councillor Paulson?
Thank you. Could I add to that, the cost in opening after Labor Day or the first week in September? Sorry.
Go ahead, CO.
Thank you. It's already been scheduled that we are opening after Labor Day. So yeah, I'm not sure where that information was that you're saying for October 1st, but that was the schedule that was approved in the financial plan, was to open right after Labor Day. Thank you.
Thank you. All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, carried. Bylaws, Reserve Fund Establishment Amendment Bylaw number 497, 2023. Be given fourth and final reading. Do you have a motion, please?
I'll move that.
Second,
I will second that.
discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, carried. The 5-year financial plan, bylaw number 498, 2023, be given fourth and final reading. Do you have a motion, please?
I'll move that.
Second,
I'll second it.
discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried.
Sorry, I wanted to vote.
So you're not opposed to the financial plan? Okay. Okay, so all of us are in favor. Okay, thank you. No opposed. Fee charges and amendment bylaw 499, 2023 be given fourth and final reading. Do I have a motion, please?
I'll move that.
Thank you. Second,
I'll second that.
discussion? All in favor? See, no opposed, carried. Tax rate bylaw number 500, 2023 be given fourth and final reading. Do I have a motion, please?
I'll move that.
Thank you. Second,
I'll
discussion. All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried. New business? None. No question period. Sorry, CAO.
Mr. Mayor, could I just bring us back to 13A, the Recreation Services Report, and request that council, that someone from council make a recommendation or a motion that staff report back to council with the costs of operating the pool for the month of June, and that staff look into the availability of facility staff.
Didn't we do that?
No. We just received and discussed.
I'll make that motion. as described.
Second,
I will second that.
discussion? Counselor Gilkin? Graham? Yeah. Okay, Counselor Burchett?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Can we include the aftercare with that? That's really important. Thank you. Just amend your motion.
All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, carried. No new business, no in camera. I need a motion to adjourn, sorry. Public question period, we don't have anybody. Right? We're good? You guys are good? Big chance, no?
Mike's ready.
Okay, no, we're not worried about the public question period. In camera, none. Adjournment. Sorry, Counselor Burchett?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a question about in camera. We had a discussion going earlier about spill response. Is that something that we want to have a quick discussion in camera about?
We can't actually. That has to be agreed to at the beginning of the amendment of the bylaw, so we can bring that forward on the next one.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Anybody want to make a motion on adjournment?
I'll move that.
Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Discussion? All in favor? Okay, thank you very much. We're adjourned. Thank you, staff.